Well, hello, girls. Welcome to week 3 here at Chic Critique. Tiffany Bender from Munchkins and Mohawks. We're going to be doing a critique here on Crecia's images today. Okay, Crecia was so kind to send me the full raw files so I can kind of take a look at those as I would normally in Lightroom. So we'll be working mostly in Lightroom for your images today. We've got a couple questions that you had asked in your post that I can address here in a little bit, but I want to dig right into looking at your images. Okay, so our first picture here, we've got adorable couple, lovely expressions. They just look so happy, love it. Let's go into look at your settings. We've got f3.2, good job getting down there a little bit. ISO 400, shutter speed is 1/640, and you said 80 millimeters. I think your EXFI data says 85 millimeters. Yep, it does. Okay. So great job on getting your aperture opened up a bit. You can see that it created a nicer depth of field back here, so you get the more of a blur going on in the background. Let's see here. Okay, so the things you were trying to work on in this image were the rule of thirds, moving your aperture down, taking a few steps back, and making a scene without a distraction. Okay, so here's your edited files. Great, you place them on the rule of thirds. I love how you've got the color pop in the background, and like I said, their expressions are fabulous. Okay, great job. Let's take a look at some of the things that we can work on for the future. The first thing that jumps out to me is the limb chops here. So I love how you step back, but I feel like you got a lot of stepping back and a lot of room up here, but we didn't quite get enough room down here. So maybe if you would have just adjusted that accordingly. So just kind of, you would move your camera down a little bit to get less sky, more feet. And then if you want, you can crop in, but at least we've got the full story here. So let's go ahead and start with a crop. Let's see, we'll bring this in quite a bit. Yeah, there we go. I know this is not a traditional 4x6 or 6x4, but I like the feel of this. So we've got, it kind of swoops you right over to them, and that is probably how I would show the client and sell that to them as a panoramic. Great, okay, so let's take a look. First thing I would do, this image, let's see, I would pull down that exposure a little bit here. Not that your exposure was off, but just in editing it. And we're going to try to pull up the tones in the background here. Let's up our white balance substantially. And add a little pink. You know, I always edit for mood rather than true life. And this image seems a little rosy and happy to me, so we're going to add a little pink whimsy in. I'm using the adjustment brush, Crecia, to bring your subjects back up. If you hit the backslash button, you can kind of see the before and after so far. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to pull the clarity down a little bit, add a little bit of whimsy to this, and I think we'll pull the shadows down. Let's pull out some of those beautiful tones in the rocks. Okay, maybe we can enhance that even further by adding some blacks in. We want to watch as to not clip. We're losing some detail back in here. So I'm watching my histogram right over here. You can also click that little button. Now, I don't mind clipping slightly, but I really don't like to see black blobs when I print my images. So I'm pulling this back quite a bit here. That's not going to work. Okay, so we will just not mess with the blacks. We're gonna get too we're gonna lose too much detail back in here. Okay, let's see. Let's go down into our split toning and let's add some color into the shadows. Again, I said let's edit this to mood, and we can kind of move around on our color to see where we like that. Let's see here. I'm adding so like a little bit of pink in. Let's see in the highlights we can. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's pull our shadows up, maybe. Lighten up our image. Vibrance up just slightly to add a little color pop. We've got our before and our after. They're looking pretty pinky, but I kind of like it. Now with our crop, you can see we kind of, instead of cropping them mid-leg, it looks a little bit more purposeful that we're kind of just getting the interaction here. So Crecia, when we pull it back to our original image, so I feel like this was a mistake. Like we cut her legs off, or cut their legs off by mistake. But it feels a little bit more purposeful. Let me go back here. That you're just capturing their interaction right here. So this is more of the story than the surroundings. Okay, so great job on this image. I love her genuine expression. As far as their styling goes, I know you don't want to talk about that too heavily. I feel like if maybe a different color scarf would have been more complementary to the background. So I love that the purples are kind of complementing these tones in the rocks. If we would have had, I don't know, let me think, a green scarf on her to kind of pull some of these green tones in. I know that's not always possible. To be honest with you, sometimes I carry like a bag of tricks in my car that has a couple of necklaces and scarves or hats or headbands or bracelets that kind of adds a pop of color to help you tie into your environment. I really am big on tonal harmony. And because we're not getting into the blue sky, I feel like I do love a pop of color, but the tone just doesn't feel right to me. If we would have had maybe a mustard colored or a green, that would have worked nicely. But great image. Okay, let's move on to your next image. Let's see here. Okay, this is for the don'ts. I love this. Okay, so the second image is a mess and straight out of the camera. I was wondering if there was anything I could do with that. I had good intentions. I was trying to use the branches as framing elements. They just look distracting now. Also, I switched to a 35mm, which I rarely use. And the last real bummer is that I let her be taller than him in the image. Well, I'm glad you picked up on that last week. I can't remember whose image it was. Maybe it was yours. But yeah, I always like to make the man look taller. So that's all about positioning. Okay, I'm all for women's rights, but I've been noticing I really like to do this, or I'd like to take this to the next level. Great. Okay, so let's see. Our settings are f2.5, ISO 640, shutter speed 1/4000. Okay, that sounds appropriate. All right, let's take a look in Lightroom. Okay, so here's our raw file. I actually really do like the posing. If we would have just flipped them across, make sure that the guy's higher up than the girl, we can kind of work that in with our way our crop falls too. Okay, so let me reverse that. Oops. Oh, not what I was wanting to do. Okay. I love how you've got your assistant or whoever back here blocking the light from becoming too harsh on them. So it looks like we shot this in some pretty bright sun. Your settings aren't on your data. It's not reading properly. I can't imagine this is 2:46 in the morning, but maybe, I don't know. All right, so I think what might have been messing you up is that we've got all these blowouts down here. So if we click on our little highlight button, you can see these little bits are all blown over here. So of course that's blown. We got a little patch in her hair, but all of this is blown. And so for framing elements, I love the idea that you were going for how you were framing them in the trees here. I totally see that. But if you would have pulled them out quite a bit, you don't want them right up against the tree. You really want it more in the background as a subtle framing element. We don't want to put them right up against it because what happens is they're on a similar focal point. And so you're going to see all the branches and all the leaves from the branches. Because of the time of day that you shot, you're getting a lot of light reflecting back off of these tree branches. So we're going to kind of have to play this differently in editing. All right, so let's start out with our crop. I need to get rid of all of this, this distraction, like these blowouts here. All right. So I think I'm gonna start somewhere about there. Let's see here. All right, so he's as high as her now, maybe. Not quite so much shorter than her. So I kind of got rid of all of those distractions down here. I would have loved, I love the foreground that it had and the dimension that it created, but because of those blowouts, I would, my eye was getting drawn to them instead of my subjects. So had we put them out, I'm really bad on distance, maybe, I don't know, 10 feet from this tree, these trees here, and you shot low enough, you would have still got that framing, but it would have been more subtle, which we could have enhanced in Photoshop also. Okay, so I think, like I said, with this image, I'm gonna go light and whimsy on this one. So my first thought was to hit angel wings. I think it was angel wings. Yeah, so you can kind of see how that softens all of this up. It makes it really kind of dreamy. Let's get rid of that little blowout on her hair. I'm getting my adjustment brush here, and I'm just gonna pull back on that exposure a little bit. Okay. Just a little bit. Okay. Let's do that to her hand as well. Pull that back. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at what that preset did. Like I said, it was just much easier for me because I know when I'm in a blowout situation or a backlit situation and with the sun still pretty high in the sky, that's my go-to preset. So let's take a look. Up the exposure just a little bit. Now, here's the key here. It decreased the contrast. So we're kind of softening all of these little leaves here. Now, this tree in particular has a lot of small leaves. So I think it's even more exaggerated that's why that was distracting for you. Again, bring your subjects away from the background. You want it to add to the environment or add to the image, not distract from it. Okay, we've also reduced the clarity. I'm kind of famous for that. I upped the vibrance 14 to add a little bit of whimsy here. All right, we also upped the darks. Okay, so you can kind of see what that does. It's pulling it up. It's making it nice and light and airy. So we'll up those darks. With the shadows are decreased slightly. It doesn't really make all that much of a difference. Okay, and then here we go again. So we added some yellows into the highlights. You can see here. Can you see how added some yellow and some softness in there? And again, in the shadows, we also added some yellows. Okay, you can kind of see that's to the extreme. So let's see. Okay, and you'll notice when you add color into the highlights, that sometimes can affect skin tones, but I think it did so in a positive way. So there's our before and after. And this is much, I really do love their skin tones and the shadowing here, but the overall feel of the image, again, like I said, I don't edit to true life, I edit to emotion and what the feel of the image is. So let's make this nice and bright. Okay, I think that's about it. Let's make sure we got all your questions on that. Okay. Yeah, I think we got that one. Okay, let's just take a look at that one more time before we move on. So we had our here's our before. Here's our after. Okay. And our last image is, boy, this girl's beautiful. All right, last image. I just don't know what to do with, and it's straight out of the camera. They're right in the middle of my frame. I have leading lines right out of the image. I'm pretty attached to the center focus point, it seems. I was also wondering what I could do for the ghostly skin tone. Okay. All right, so you shot f5. Yes, watch that aperture. We want to get that low, especially when you're shooting in a situation like this. These are adults, they're not going anywhere. You can tell them to stand pretty still. I'd like to see you shooting here at like 2.8. Okay, 1/125, ISO 400. The rest are appropriate. Good. Okay, yeah, we've kind of got your eye going right out the page. So let's take a look at this in Lightroom. All right. Oh, we got a smile on this one. Okay, same setup. Okay, so we've got them right smack dab. Let's take a look here in the center of our page, and we had talked about quite a bit about cropping, or in-camera cropping, or post cropping. So we want to have that golden spiral kind of start over here. We read from left to right and swoop right on their face here. All right, so it draws your attention to them. And, I don't think his skin is so ghostly as is the overall feel of the image is very cool. So this can be remedied very easily with a adjustment to white balance. I think his skin tone is drastically different than hers anyway, and that's fine. That's just what it is. So that warmed him up quite a bit. Okay. Let's see. So what I would do for my typical workflow is I would have a bunch of presets saved. And this is what I want to encourage you guys to do, is once you kind of get your workflow down, start saving some of the adjustments that you're often making, and so then you can just quickly go back to it and make a few little adjustments, and your workflow is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, I just wanted to say that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, so I actually used a preset, but we're going to go back and not do that, so we can talk about exactly what we did. Okay. What happened to my crop here? Sorry about that. Okay, so there we are. We've got them right here, ending on the golden spiral. And I think, let's see here. I'm sorry, let's reset this in. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna put our subject right here at the end of the golden spiral. We're gonna up our temperature. I want to draw our attention into our subject. So right now they're the darkest thing in the image, and I want them to be the lightest thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down that exposure. It's going to enrich in the background. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull down the shadows. We're going to pull up the darks. And then we're going to go down here to the post-crop vignette. And I want to make this pretty dramatic. Okay. Oops, wrong one, I'm sorry. Create a highlight priority, post-crop. All right, so what we need to do here is bring these people back up and make them the center of our attention. So I'm adding an adjustment brush. I'm in Lightroom 4, and so I've got the ability to add warmth and some light. I'm also going to reduce the clarity to make their skin a little softer. I'm going to up the saturation just slightly. Let's go ahead and pull those shadows down a little bit. Or up, I'm sorry. Okay. So we can see here's our before and our after. I think I'm going to try to make that vignette just a little bit more even. Okay, I would probably take it out of Photoshop or out of Lightroom just like this. In Photoshop, I might lighten this up just slightly. I'm gonna actually probably take the eyedropper tool and brush on at a low opacity right on his face here, just to kind of even this out just a little bit. I think that's probably all I would do. This is great. So we've got our eyes are leading right to our subject. I like how we've got the diagonals again. And this feels like a complete, we've got a complete triangle here. So it's going to keep your eye circling through your image. Great. Okay, and then let's go back. I want to take a look here. You had asked about highlights. All right. All right, so your question, okay, in ACR I always recover unless it's impossible or I make a mistake, but in Photoshop is the only way to check for clipping or blown highlights after each adjustment is by using the info and selectively moving my mouse in the areas. Okay, and a little bit sometimes is alright as long as it's not in the subject's face or clothing. Yes, okay, that's an easy one. Yes, little blown bits are okay, as long as it's not distracting from the image. It's okay in my book. A lot of people could argue otherwise, but for me, I am okay, especially if it's not in their skin or clothing. It's definitely okay in my book. Now in Photoshop, yeah, there's a couple quick ways to take a look at that. And let me get your image open here. Oh, Crecia, where'd we put you? Oh, okay. Okay, so we've got one of your images here. Sorry, Photoshop's slow today. All right, a quick way to check your blown highlights would be to hit your levels button over in the adjustments, and then I want you to hit the Alt button, and you can hit the little highlight triangle. When you hit that, if there are any areas that are white, that means they're blown. So good job, no blown on this one. So what we'll do, let me show you if we were to blow something out. Okay. And now let's go take a look here. Oh no, they're still not blown. Let's see. Well, that would have to be blown there. Okay, you can see those little blue areas are starting to get blown out. So that would be how you would check that. Surprising that whole thing's not blown. But, so you would hit levels, you do a levels adjustment, hit the Alt button, and then your little tab over here. Alternately, you can do the black clips, check for clippings by pressing this little triangle here. Okay. All right, I hope that answered that question. Another quick way to do that would be to go to your view and then gamut warning. And then that will see how it's showing up right here. That'll show you there's areas that need attention. Okay, I think that's all for this week. So what I'd love to see you work on this week, let me look at these images collectively. Okay, so this week, Crecia, let's work a little bit more on stronger composition. So I love that you're working on rule of thirds. Let's make sure we're telling the full story as in the tops and the bottoms, get all the body parts in, and then we can crop in if we need to. Let's work on pulling our people out from the background. And let's try to go a little bit further. Let's try to go down to 2.8 this week, see if we can do it. Maybe don't shoot the whole session on that, but at least get a couple images so we can see how you did with that. You'll love to see that beautiful bokeh on the background. Your subjects really pop off the page. But great job this week. I see a lot of progression. And I hope you enjoyed your critique, and I will see you next week.